destinations. And again, that's stayed in the 20s, around 20% since. So that's, again, something that should benefit Ohio as we work towards recovery. Now, we also asked these travelers about the key factors that they feel will greatly impact their decision to travel in the next 6 months. The three areas we asked about were transportation costs, the economy, and the coronavirus. We'll work from the bottom up. So obviously, transportation costs have not popped, have not really factored in. We give them a 1 to 5 scale where you see 1 is no impact at all, 5 is greatly impact. Not a lot of great impact seen on the transportation cost. Obviously, if you're trying to book future travel right now, now's the best time. I was looking at Southwest Airlines last week from Columbus, Ohio to Honolulu. I can fly for about $300 round trip. $350, I think, was the price I saw there. So there are deals, and it's not obviously not impacting. Of course, gas prices are low, but nobody can go anywhere. Concerns about the economy, that has remained very stable. It's been, those saying greatly impact has been between 22 and 24% every week through this survey. And by now we were actually expecting to see this one go up. But we think the fear of the coronavirus itself is compressing that. We believe as restrictions ease, this one is probably going to grow. But again, you can see the big kahuna here is the fear of coronavirus. 63% of traveling Americans are telling us that's going to greatly impact their decision to travel in the next 6 months. And we add it with the next lower category, I mean, that's 86% of the travel. So no surprise there, but it's still just overwhelming. Looking at it in the trend line, you can see it's not as high as it was a couple weeks ago, but it's stabilized at least. But when you compare it to the very first week where we were before, March 11th, only 1 out of 3 travelers thought it would have a great impact on their decision to travel. So that's what we have to overcome now. And fear is going to be the big thing when we'll talk about recovery for travel. All right, the $64,000 question: who's going to be traveling the next 6 months? Well, again, when we started this survey 6 weeks ago, 87% of Americans said we're going to be traveling. No doubt in my mind. And you can see that went down, 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 down. Now, we ran that first survey. That was right before the president declared a national emergency, before Ohio went on lockdown. So you can kind of see where how it dipped and went down. The bottom was April 1st, 65%. I'm very happy to report, here's the ray of light. Notice between April 1st and April 15th, you see a 7% spike in intent to travel in the next 6 months. Which now, now that it's been going for 2 weeks, we can see, we'll call this an emerging trend. We have a feeling, last week's survey came out of the field right before the president announced his goal to get the country going again by May 1st, before our governor here in Ohio announced that the first phase of reopening would start happening around May 1st, and many other governors following suit. So we're fingers crossed. We're going to be eagerly anticipating the results of this week's survey to see if this trend continues upward, because you're going to have this intent to travel. This also reinforces the fact that there is going to be a very large pent-up demand. The fact that this never went below 65%, that 2 out of 3 Americans still said they were going to be traveling the next 6 months, totally points to the fact that there will be good pent-up demand for travel once restrictions are eased. Again, how are they going to be eased? That remains to be seen. And over what time frame remains to be seen. The last point I'm going to share with you here is it's a 10-question questionnaire survey every week. The 10th question we kind of rotate out every week, asking these traveling Americans different things about how they travel or information they're consuming and so forth. This week's questionnaire, we're going to be asking a question about what will make them feel safe as things start reopening. But this past week, we asked a question about what type of content, what kind of travel-related content are these traveling Americans currently viewing or interacting with here in the last couple months. Some of you may be surprised to see that print, a magazine article on travel, a physical magazine article, came out on top there. Guess what, folks? People are getting screened out. I don't know about you, but I'm getting zoomed out, right? How many Zoom calls are you on a day? As we're on a Zoom right now, definitely a reflection that people are trying to disconnect with other ways. Short online videos, live streaming videos, travel books and guidebooks, still show up very, very prevalent here. I think what this is telling you, and what we've seen, we asked this question a couple of weeks ago too, and the mix was fairly similar. I think the key thing right now is if you're not starting to push out your content, I know a lot of, especially the destination marketing organizations, turned out to pushing out aspirational content in terms of, hey, the kind of messaging that, hey, we know you can't think about travel right now, but we're here when you're ready to start thinking about travel again. A lot of folks have changed their content to supporting local businesses. I know Ohio has done a great job with their support local campaigns, and many of you have picked up and fed off of that, and that's a wonderful thing to do. But what this data is showing now, especially with intent to travel on the upswing and seeing how people are absorbing content, if you've been banking content about your destination, your attraction, whatever you are, and where you've had bloggers write articles and so forth, and you were thinking about stringing it out over the summer and whatnot, start pushing that out now. You can really push that out now. It's not necessarily time to have heavy call to actions to buy products yet, but definitely push that content that people are clearly seeking information on places to go, things to do once they're able to do them again. So anyway, that's the short story of what we saw this week. And you can find more information, this most recent week survey and all the past week surveys. You can find highlights of them, narrative on it are available on longwoodsinternational.com. We also want to thank our partners at Miles. They came on board as a partner early on to this process with us and asked how they could help us with this. And we said, help us keep this free for the industry. We want to make this available to everyone. So thanks to their partnership, we're able to provide this free and feel this every week through the crisis. We're really happy to do that. So with that, I will now take questions, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And or Melinda, do you want me to stop sharing my screen, or are you guys?
No, just go ahead and keep it. It looks like we lost Kelly.
All right, that's fine. No worries. All right. We'll keep that up and
yes.
And there. So, talk to me. What do you want to know? What do we want to talk about?
So we have a couple questions. One, could you give us a little more details? You talked a little bit how you're going to start asking about what will make travelers comfortable. Mm-hmm. Can you give us a little more information on what information will be included in that, when you're pushing it out, when those when that information will be available? Because I think that will be really important as people start to develop their reopening strategies.
Yeah, so that data will be available a week from yesterday. So every Tuesday morning. So again, we field these surveys every Wednesday and Thursday. We usually get the data back by Thursday night, and then I have a superstar team of analysts here in Columbus that will pour over that and take the numbers and make them into a nice story here, and we'll finalize it on Monday to release first thing Tuesday morning. And I know the Ohio Travel Association has been great. As soon as we hit launch on that every week, you guys have been sharing it with your members. So find it via OTA's channels or our channels. It'll be there. Now, as to what information we're asking, it's just one question. We're asking it's just time to start testing that waters. We are going to be asking things about, what's going to make, what's going to, we know that fear is something that every destination is going to have to cope with right now. Is it safe for me to travel? I'm thinking as a consumer, I'm wondering, is it safe for me to travel? When is it safe for me to travel? Is it when the health authorities tell me it's safe to travel? If Governor DeWine and Dr. Acton say that we can begin non-essential travel to places, how are folks going to feel about going places? Are you going to want to stay in a hotel? Are you going to want to hop on a plane? What's going to make it feel safe for you? So we're asking questions about what are the kind of those triggers. I saw a survey the other day. Somebody did some focus groups with some travelers, and one person's comment was, "I will feel safe to travel when Disneyland reopens." In there. So you think about that. That's that person's benchmark. And you know, there's going to be a new normal for travel, at least until there's a vaccine. And how quickly and how things reopen and how quickly travel resumes at a good pace, and that is not determined by us in the tourism industry. It's not determined by the destination marketers. It's determined by the health authorities and the government, right? So when they deem certain benchmarks good for resume non-essential travel, we are going to have to communicate in our marketing messages something that we never really had to communicate very much before, is that we are clean and safe. So somehow about, you know, sharing your experience, whatever makes your destination attraction, whatever you are, a unique proposition for the consumer, you're also going to have to somehow get the message across that you are a safe and clean destination to go visit. And so this is going to be a process. So anyway, I'll stop rambling on that.
No, thanks. I appreciate that. Could you tell us a little bit about the audience that you field every week?
Yeah, it's a representative sample of the U.S. Like I said, it comes from, in the beginning, it comes from our Travel USA panel. These are traveling Americans and 18 years old and older. So obviously, people have to have the means to travel and do travel with some level of frequency in there. And again, it's weighted so it's representative of the whole U.S. So it's not a Ohio centric or Midwest centric. We're trying to get a snapshot of the country as a whole.
Perfect. And speaking of snapshots, have you been able to get, another question came in, to see if there's any differences in maybe some demographics of your audience and their intent to travel? Are you seeing anything different with age range, for example?
Yeah, we're you know, with 1,000 sample, you know, this is a quick poll we're doing every week because we want to churn out data very quickly to the industry. We're not going super deep into demographic breakouts, so I don't have enough what I'll call a valid sample for each generational group to do accurate, what I would call a truly telling accurate comparison in there. But from what we're seeing, from what we do have, and from what I've seen from some other studies out there, it correlates pretty well. You know, the big shifts are to watch the younger generation and the older generation. Older generation is going to be much more conservative. They're going to be much more waiting for the authorities to reassure them that it's good to go. The younger generation is chomping at the bit. And again, it's I mean, it doesn't take science to tell you that. It's very intuitive. Look at the spring breakers that we had in Florida when they were trying to shut things down, right? You didn't see people my age out on the beach. It was all Gen Z and Gen Y out there partying on the beaches, and it's just you know, it's the luxury of youth that you feel a little bit more a little less scared by these types of things.
Perfect, thanks. Another question came in. How does the intent to travel in the next 6 months compare to what you might have seen in 2019?
Well, we weren't tracking this, and this is a special survey that we launched for this. I would say that first week survey that we ran, if you saw, it would have said 87% were planning to travel in 6 months. I'll guarantee you it would have been in the high 90s probably if we were to run this in 2019.
So another question came in, just, you know, looking for your thoughts on whether, you know, what are your thoughts on attractions and destinations, and talking about planning now, booking now for travel later, and whether or not you think that that is a strategy that will work based on what you're seeing?
Well, you have to be, it's a great question. You have to be careful not to be tone deaf, right? And we were counseling a lot of our clients and a lot of destinations that we work with to be very careful about how you approach the book later. thing, because when things were going into lockdown mode, you definitely didn't want to be saying any of that. Now people are starting to absorb content. They're starting to make their bucket list. If you look at social media listening, you'll see there's a lot of chatter about where the first places people are going to go after this is over, and where they're going to go to, and the ways they're going to explore things. So again, like I said earlier, I think it's good to start pushing out the content you have. We asked a question the week before about what type of offers would people be open to, or what type of opportunities or information would people want to receive, and deals, after local information on where I can get, carry out food and local, kind of support local type of things. The next thing was information about future travel deals there. So if you are, the airlines and the hotels are very aggressively promoting, buy now, book later type programs. And now is probably the time you can begin doing those, but do it very, very tastefully. Don't do it in the messaging that indicates hurry up and get back to travel in there, because travel is a personal thing. I'm going to go when I feel good to go again. So just be careful not to cross that boundary.
That's a really, really good point. And it kind of relates also to another question that came in from a participant that's saying, when is that point to switch messaging from supporting local to visiting locations?
Yeah, it's when the health authorities, they're going to drive that. They're going to drive that point. There's a lot of data. There's a lot of, we're not the only ones conducting research on this. There's a lot of great work that's being done by my colleagues across the industry right now. And we're all looking, and everybody's asked me 10 times a day, where's that point of convergence in the data where we can just open up our marketing machine and go full bore? Yeah, it's not brain surgery. It is about when the health officials say it's okay to resume non-essential travel. Yeah.
I'm going to add on to that too, Amir. It's also when, if you're a DMO, or even attraction, it's when you're ready. Like, just because the health department may say non-essential travel can happen, are your businesses ready for visitors?
Oh yeah, well, and that's a whole other issue.
Yeah.
I was answering about when to market, in terms of the marketing message, when the consumer will be receptive to that message. Yeah, the fact of the matter is, you don't want to be sending you don't want to be putting the welcome out before you're absolutely ready for that. Yeah. And of course, here in Ohio, we're still waiting for guidelines, right, as to what the reopening is going to look like, what the criteria is going to be to reopen a business and establishment. And, it's going to be different from industry to industry, whatever type of business you are, I'm sure. In there, I would just, I was sharing with some colleagues this morning, yesterday, Wynn Hotels out of Vegas. If you haven't seen them, they released their plan for health and safety as they get ready to reopen their big properties. Now, granted, Wynn's a luxury resort, but just if you get your chance to, I'll post a link at the end of this, and I'll post a link here in the chat box for it, so you can look at it. But
we'll send it out with the email.
Oh, okay, great, thanks. It is so thorough. It is so detailed. Now, granted, it will be very expensive to maintain this, but look at the level of detail and thought they are giving to this. And and they're doing this in consultation with health authorities too. So the one thing I would encourage you, if you're thinking about what it means to be to not just make sure your property or your facility is safe and clean and welcoming, make sure you're doing it with what the health department expects you to be in terms of safe and clean and healthy. But again, it all feeds into that marketing, right? When you are ready to receive the visitors, when you are following whatever the best practices and recommended guidelines are, when you are ready to flip on the marketing engine and get people in and start sending that message like, come now, book now, you need to make sure that all these extra steps you're taking need to somehow be conveyed within that marketing message in there. Yes, people are going to look to get away. They're going to look for great experiences, but they need to know they're safe experiences.
Couldn't agree more. We had another question that came in. It's along the same lines. It's, when like resorts can reopen, when it's harder to social distance. Yes, it is going to be a challenge. There, like I said, there is a group a task force, governor's task force, looking at mass gatherings. We are going to be able to glean some best practices from there. I can also let you know that, the Ohio Travel Association is working on, possibly putting some best practices, because here's the deal. It's going to be so unique to every different business out there. You're going to get some basic guidelines when we know what those are. The personal distancing and the masks and the gloves. I mean, we have a really good idea of what's going to be required. What each business is going to have to do is maybe take a look, maybe even through role playing, look at every interaction a guest, an employee, or a delivery person has with a surface or another individual. And how do you either remove that interaction? So for instance, if you have an electronic digital time clock, do you need it right now? How do you either eliminate that interaction, or how do you ensure you are upping up the cleaning regimen to ensure that that's done? So as far as, resorts, that physical distancing is just one piece of the puzzle. We know that employees are going to be required to have masks. So I wish we could give you all the answers, but, like Amir said, like, those answers are forthcoming, and we are going to get that information to you and look for best practices as soon as we can.
Yeah, the new normal is going to come in stages. There'll be the initial one, which will be the most restrictive, and then also plan for a new normal post-vaccine, right? Right now the first stages are going to be in the world that we live in now, when there's not a vaccine, and then you have to look at post-vaccine, what the standards of cleanliness or safety are going to be after that. So there will likely be some elements of what we're required to do in the beginning, pre-vaccine, that will carry on post-vaccine in there.
Yes.
The other thing about the welcome mat I wanted to bring up, Melinda, and you were so right about a community being ready to welcome people back. It's also make sure there's a dialogue with your residents. I have been in several conversations in the last couple of weeks, and actually working with two of our clients right now. One is a beach destination. The other one is an Appalachian destination that they have the issue right now where the residents in the community, despite what the elected officials are saying, are pushing back about bringing visitors in too soon from the community into the community because they're afraid these visitors may be bringing the disease into their community if things open up too quickly. They're afraid that these communities, which are built for a permanent year-round resident, their medical facilities are only so big that they don't have the capacity, if they're at full swing and the pandemic hits, to deal with this, and they're afraid that it may have a sad toll on the local population. So, there needs to be sure that there is conversation taking place with some representation of the residents and the health authorities as to how you reopen it. Now, again, knowing that reopening will likely happen locally first, then regionally, and then across state lines and so forth. That's going to be the likelihood of this, but there's still that fear there. It's not just the fear of the traveler; it's the fear of the resident. So some of your destinations may need to be prepared for that.
That's a really great point. This one kind of ties into a previous discussion we had about your prediction on different age groups of travelers and when they'll rebound to travel. We're seeing, you've already mentioned that the younger generations are more itching to travel right now. However, in your opinion, what types of travel experiences do you think will rebound first? And is there any difference with maybe some of those age groups?
Yeah, I think the one that will span all generations, all life stages, will be outdoors. Those who have outdoor assets, people are going to want to get outside. Here in Ohio, we've been fortunate that, except for Hocking Hills, all of our state parks have remained open. Obviously, the distancing restrictions and guidelines are going to continue to be in effect for some time with that. But I predict, people will be seeking to get outside, get away. So parks, beach destinations, things like that will probably be very, very popular. Plus, because it's easier for people to distance in there, it's not seen as a tighter, confined area, and people will feel good about that. Again, driving before flying, because I can control my car. I know how clean my car is, and so forth. Although the airlines are working very, very hard to, regain that. Generationally, there are going to be some folks that are going to be, right now, I was on a call with some folks in the Southeast yesterday, and they said, Lord help the world if SEC football, college football, is canceled this fall. Here in Columbus, what happens if what does Ohio State football look like this fall? Is it going to be, played to an empty stadium, or 20% capacity stadium, or how does that work? I think, I think again, the generations, I think it's going to be more life stage than generational. I think those who have families, that have children, that have young children, or older family members that are more at risk, and so forth, they're going to be more naturally cautious, whether it comes to attractions or other types of experiences in there, than those who may be younger, don't have young children, or better health. Lower risk health groups, and so forth. So I don't think it's going to be so generational as it is life stage. I feel responsible for my kids. My family. I'm a primary breadwinner in my family. My wife is too. We have 2 kids that are college age, and we are, and make sure that we're able to provide for them in that. So we're going to be cautious in how we approach reentry, to make sure we don't put our ability to provide at risk. So I think that's going to happen in every household. We're going to create their own little litmus test.
So when you talk about the outdoor recreation and the openness that's going to be sought after first, one of the things that I have been saying too is you also have to be very careful what images you're putting out there. Even thinking about this, in the future as you market, you probably don't want to have an image of a jam-packed street festival or a lot of people close together. So just being aware that, I don't know about you guys, but even when I'm watching a TV program, sometimes I go, oh, they're so close together, these days, because that's just something we're more aware of. So think about, even in your imagery of what are you portraying. That doesn't mean you don't have people in your images, but just be more aware of maybe how closely they're spaced.
Yeah, great.
The thing that was associated with that was about concern over sports and large attractions and large events, and the reality is, those are probably going to be the last ones to open. So, as you talk about marketing, as you talk about what to do, it's understanding that you're going to have some restrictions just based on what is available and what is permissible, because May 1st is not going to be a green light, every business opens. I can, pretty much guarantee that. And even looking at the national guidelines, you can see that the restrictions kind of ramp up as time goes on. So it is being aware that you will have to stagger some marketing based on what you have available, how safe it is, how ready your community is to host them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the national guidelines, non-essential travel, I think, doesn't show up until phase 2.
Yes.
And of course, here in Ohio, we don't even know what phase it will show up here in Ohio.
Right. Okay, here's a question. It's a long one. They've heard from partners who don't feel it's responsible to promote or highlight parks when much of the state is shut down. As an adventure branded destination, we've promoted finding solace and fresh air at parks, noting how to do it safely. Do you think it's acceptable to continue to promote opting outside to individuals and families? And basically, it's mostly residents at this point.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's the trick, right? It's that balance. It's I don't think there's anything wrong with encouraging people. You know, our governor does it, you know, a couple times a week in his press conference, talking about, you know, get outside, catch a breath of fresh air, but do it smartly. I think if you're encouraging people to go take advantage of the outdoor assets that are available for the public at this time out there, it's doing that in the same breath, reminding them, but do it responsibly, do it 6 feet apart, wear your face mask, you know, do those things that are asked of us, so that we can continue to enjoy those assets. You know, for a lot of small businesses, you know, we don't want to go. I know this is a painful thing, but our industry, as our industry is made up of a majority of small businesses, we don't want to go through start, stop. We don't want to encourage something too fast, too hard, and then have it and then have a resurgence shut us all back down again, right? So let's make sure, you know, encourage people to come out and take advantage of the outdoor assets that are allowed to do so, right? They're allowed to take advantage of right now, but make sure it's encouraging them to do it responsibly.
Question just pertained to your methodology and the folks who are surveyed. Is it the same group of people, or do you randomly choose other populations?
No, it's a random sample of American travelers. Yeah.
Okay.
That automatically keeps biases out of.
Okay, and it's a different group every time.
Yeah, a different group coming from our Travel USA panel. Yep.
Okay. Any other? Oh, I got a few that were sent in earlier. I forgot about that. What do you anticipate as far as the decrease of attendance that we may see?
Attendance at like events?
Let's just look at it from an attraction standpoint, right? So if we're looking at it from an attraction standpoint, what percentage do you anticipate we'll see? And these are questions that came in pre-webinar.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's a great question. That's going to be, honestly, I can't predict that. That's going to be dictated by the health authorities, right? They're going to come out with the standards, you know, whether it's for attractions, for restaurants, for events, you know, what type of capacity. They might say, will it be a restriction of, 25% capacity, or will be a restriction based on the amount of distancing you can do within a specific attraction or facility? That remains to be seen in there. So that's going to be set by the authorities. I would make sure a lot of DMOs are already in really good regular contact with their local health authorities. I know Experience Columbus here in Columbus worked very closely. I know the Ohio Hotel and Lodging Association working very closely with the departments of health across the state, and so forth. OTA as well, and all these organizations work. Feed your questions through OTA, through OHLA, through whatever your sector you're represented by. Make sure you feed your questions through to that, because the health authorities are gonna try to make they're gonna make the best decisions and best guidelines they can based on the information they have, and they'll tend to be more general. Every time it's a general thing, there's always going to be exceptions or a case that doesn't quite fit with that. Make sure that Melinda and her team have your scenario to pass along to the health authorities, or if you have a connection to them, pass along directly to them, so that they're aware when they're setting these guidelines that they might need to account for how your business works versus somebody else's.
And I think there's two things you also have to consider. There will be identifying like a percentage of decreased attendance is going to be dictated two ways. One, like Amir just said, there's going to be restrictions on the number of people in many of the businesses. So that's going to dictate a decrease right there. Plus, it's the type of business that you may have, the type of attraction you may have. and there'll be some consumer issues as well. So it's going to be carefully looking at both of those indicators. And it's a unique situation because for the first time, we're going to like have someone outside of us tell us what decrease of business we're going to have based on our capacity.
Yeah.
So based on the research, you know, what do you see for properties in the near future, given the Ohio plan to reopen some businesses May 1?
Remains to be seen, right? We don't know the details yet. Whether it's, I'm assuming it's lodging properties, perhaps. You know, I can't predict it. You know,
I agree.
It's all going to be dependent on when they're saying ready for phase 2. You know, for the whatever the phase is that non-essential travel is allowed there. But I think the progression is going to be this, right? I think we can, you know, we don't know when and how it's going to happen, but I think the progression we should all prepare for is that the first thing the consumer is going to do is step out of their house for part of the day or the day. So it's day trip. You know, phase 1, you know, we, as destination marketers, a lot of always said, you know, you go after the overnighter because they're a much more lucrative spending traveler, or you try to convert the day tripper into the overnighter. But in this case, the day tripper is going to be the first high value customer for you, because, you know, maybe when the seasons are over, I'm going to take my wife out to dinner first, and then after that, and that felt good, and once I can, then I'm maybe going to take her down to Hocking Hills if the state park's back open, you know, and go spend a afternoon, you know, hiking the trails there. Maybe, and then maybe I'm going to say, you know what, it's time for me to take a little weekend getaway, and I'm going to go up to Cleveland for the weekend and do an Indians game in a Rock Hall. You know, those are up and open there, and then maybe I'm going to look at taking a vacation outside of my state in there. So I think, you know, we kind of need to prepare for that progression there. That it's you know, now that's when it comes to leisure. The other thing I'm seeing in a lot of research, a lot of indicators out there, a lot of people are saying the first thing I'm going to do is visit friends and relatives in there. So maybe people have grandparents that they haven't seen because of this. They've had to isolate. Maybe people haven't seen their cousins or maybe some college buddies were planning to get together, or girlfriends get away or something like that in there. So be prepared for that. You know, there are I'm working with several destinations that are, their first marketing effort is actually going to be a look at local opportunity there, and that opportunity is going to be, you know, to get people just out of their homes back into local businesses. So taking care of that, and also reminding the locals what to do with the friends and relatives that might be coming in because you haven't seen each other. Because Lord knows, if I'm getting a visit from my cousins, I don't want to stay at home anymore. I want to get out somewhere. So where is it safe, and where is it good for me to take them, where we won't run into trouble? So that's kind of the mindset I think we have to adapt to right now.
Another question just came in, and I think this is a really great one, that local media is asking what we think about the impact of COVID on travel. And the person is saying their community suffering, as we all, and we worry for the survival of these businesses. But she doesn't want to say that, you know. Well, so here's the question. So we have all been programmed to be positive, to be optimistic, to you know, put the happy face on, and to talk about our businesses and all the good things. You know, what are your thoughts about how does a attraction or a destination or a business, you know, address those questions about what is actually happening, and what do we say when someone asks us that question about the impact of COVID?
That's a great question.
Isn't that a great question?
That's a wonderful question. I'm glad somebody asked it. We need to be honest and transparent.
Yep, I agree.
First of all, honesty and transparency. That's where, you look at where the trust is. People trust Dr. Acton because she's brutally honest when she has to be. She has a great delivery about it, but she's brutally honest when she has to be. Tell me what I need to know. And then the second thing is, the old Winston Churchill quote: "Never let a good crisis go to waste." Yes, we've been conditioned to put the PR face on it and positive spin where you can, but we have to. When 9/11 happened, it was a blip, it was a hiccup, and it was really more air travel more than anything else. But America stopped traveling for a few days, and people got a little taste of what happens when people stop traveling, but kind of quickly forgotten unless you were inside in the travel and tourism industry. Now, America knows what happens when people stop traveling altogether, and how deep the travel industry is connected to the roots of almost every facet of the economy in there. So what is wrong with saying, what, things are tough right now? And it's not just because the hotel had to lay off most of their staff and is working with a skeleton crew at 10% occupancy just for, helping, house some health workers or essential workers there. But, those suppliers, we're not buying our supplies. And the suppliers have had to lay off staff because all their industry clients aren't happening. And then, oh, by the way, those people were laid off. They now don't have money to shop in the local stores. They don't have money to support local. They don't have money to do this. It's a big snowball. It's okay to say that. It's okay to say that right now, and we need to, because here's the other thing. When as recovery, yes, the economy is definitely of concern, and you see it that being dealt with all kinds of relief acts and everything else that's going on right now, but as the restrictions start eased and life gets back to more whatever the new normal is, in there, we're still going to have the problem of communities needing to fill tax coffers, communities having very scarce revenue that they're going to have to make some tough decisions as to where to apply those revenues towards critical services, to helping jumpstart new businesses or existing businesses, to help breathe life back into the economy. And if the local community, the residents, the community leaders, and the media is a great vehicle for this, don't understand why it's important to make sure that the resources are there for the travel and tourism component of the overall economy, that we're missing a big opportunity here, and it will hurt us. It will hurt our businesses.
You've got it. And I'm going to just reiterate a couple of those points, because we do have a tendency to talk about ourselves. We talk about our direct income. We talked about our direct revenue into our hotels and attractions. It is also about how commerce is shut down because our businesses are not purchasing goods and services. So, being able to link the fact that travel has stopped, business has stopped in these different attractions and restaurants and hotels, to the fact that their suppliers, who are also local businesses, many of them small businesses, are also feeling the impact because of that loss to business, is key. And in the past, the state of Ohio has, not necessarily shared the induced revenue portion of our industry, induced being what Amir was talking about as far as our buying power, because we have jobs in this industry. And that is such a huge component to talk about, because our industry represents a third of those unemployed right now. And because they don't have the jobs, they are not out there spending either. So I agree 100% that we need to be honest, and we need to be truthful, and we need to tell the story exactly what is happening. Any other questions? Send them in. I think I have gone through, I think you've answered most of these. One of them, just to kind of touch on, have you seen any differences or any insights into, some of the like Airbnb versus hotels, or any data on that, what you're hearing? Different types of lodging that consumers are going to be more apt to want when this is over?
I haven't seen, I know that I've seen advanced booking data from sources like Adara and a couple others that show that 90-day advanced bookings are seeing a slight uptick. That correlates with, our slight uptick in people saying they're intent to travel in the next 6 months. So there is some of that in terms of who's going to do better, the sharing economy accommodation or the traditional lodging sector. I've seen theories going both ways. My personal feeling, based on what I've seen and what I'm hearing, is I think the bigger brands, if they handle this right, are going to have the initiative on this. I just told you about what Wynn Resorts, just did. Marriott, Hilton, all these big brands, all these big corporations, lodging corporations, with their layers of brands underneath them, are all, I guarantee you, hard at work setting up whatever those new standards are for health and safety and so forth. And of course, we'll be able to modify those for whatever the requirements might be at a various state or locale in there. And we'll have the ability to make sure and enforce that enforce them being implemented. When you're looking about independent properties, when you're looking at rental properties, that like Airbnb type of things, this is there. That's, they're going to have to come up with a solution for that. How are they going to demonstrate that they are that between guests, the Airbnb is being sanitized or cleaned or that? But every hotel, every accommodation type is going to have to demonstrate that to the nth degree of what they're doing for that. Because again, you got to overcome that fear and so forth. Singapore, if you haven't looked at what Singapore has done, they launched it earlier this week. Google up Singapore's tourism certification program. Their tourism board is actually undertaking a certification program that they're trying to get the hotels done first, and then they'll branch it out to attractions, etc. But basically, they worked with the Board of Health in Singapore and said, here are the minimum here are the key criteria for being deemed, as going the extra mile or acceptable best practices. And they're actually going to send inspectors into the properties and facilities and make sure if you check all whatever the 5 or 10 boxes are, then you get a little certification sticker there, and you get on the list of places that have been, that are adhering to best practices. So some communities may want to look at some type of thing, some things like that. There's been other programs before, like Superior Small Lodging, other types of things like that. But you're going to have to win the trust of a consumer. Now, again, and I'm not saying you have to go through one of those types of programs, but an individual property is going to have to go that extra mile, whether it's a branded property, an independent, or an Airbnb. They're going to have to go that extra mile to demonstrate what they're doing to make it a safe environment for the guests.
It's interesting you brought up the certification idea, because we've talked about that, but I think there's some liability issues there. I worry about that. So although I appreciate them doing that, there's so much unknown about this virus and what to do that I just worry about anybody, certifying a place as safe given the uncertainties that are out there. So I would use caution on that one, at least for right now. We may find out later, but that just concerns me.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you don't want to become responsible for a business that you're not affiliated with or not your thing. But I think the Singapore effort isn't so much saying we're liable for it. We're saying somebody has checked that this place is doing these things at this time, in there, and they're not looking for policing, but they're looking for some standardized way, saying that their goal is to say all the hotels in our community do at least these 5 things. Some may do more, some may be, whatever, but all are at least doing these 5 things and so forth. But yeah, it's a whole issue. Yeah, when you get into that. But the bottom line is you're going to have to go the extra mile and tell the consumer how you're going to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there was a question on, messaging that. And I think that that's going to evolve. Like how best to message that is going to evolve. But, I think basically from a DMO perspective, it's about talking to your partners. Like it's not about, yes, you have to do these things at your visitor center if you have one, but you've got to be concerned with every other business out there, and your partners, and are they doing what needs to be done?
And that's it, right? Because all you need is one or two, let's say you're the destination marketing organization. Maybe you're doing a great job of getting the message out in the right way, a thoughtful way, a way that's impactful when the time is right. And then all you need is one or two of your partners, of your local stakeholders, to not abide by best practices, to do something, and God forbid there's an outbreak, a surge, whatever, or something else, or a bad PR incident that happens around that, to that property, it can unravel all the recovery work that's been done in a heartbeat and set the destination.
Absolutely. Okay. Oh, wait, we got another question. Oh, just it says thank you. So I believe that's the last of the questions. Hopefully I caught every single one of those. We will be sending out an email. I am hoping that we will have a copy of the webinar in that email, but because of technical difficulties, we're not sure how much of that. So what we will do for sure is, if it's okay with Amir, we'll provide the slide deck at the very least. Absolutely. And as much of a recording as we're able to. So I want to thank Amir, and I want to, if you could just fast forward now that you are my host, Amir, if you could go forward on the slides.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That thing is,
but we want to really thank not only Amir, but also we want to thank Midwest Living for allowing us to do this and allowing us to bring this information to you.
I apologize, mine is frozen.
Oh, no worries, no worries. We are ever so grateful. And if anyone has any questions, please reach out to us. We'll put my email, if you don't know it already, we'll put it in the email, and know that you can contact me at any time with any specific questions you may have. So thank you very much. Have a great day and spend some time outdoors.
Thank you, everyone.